Let's keep the girls away from Chris
Oh,
Brown.
come on, Danny.
Let's keep the girls away from Chris Brown. That's what 6ix9ine said into a live microphone at the Brand Risk 14 event in Las Vegas on May 23, 2026, in front of millions of people watching the stream, in a room full of cameras, with Chris Brown sitting ringside. Clip went viral in hours. Headlines erupted. Chris Brown brutally attacks 6ix9ine on camera. Chris Brown confronts 6ix9ine after he mocked him. The thumbnails were wild. Red arrows, shocked faces, words in all caps. Millions of clicks followed. Here's the truth before we go any further. Not on camera, not off camera, not anywhere. No fists thrown, no confrontation in a parking lot, no police involvement, no arrests. The phrase, brutally attacks, was sensationalized clickbait built on a verbal jab at a live event and an alleged private video nobody outside the two camps has actually seen. The thumbnail lied to you. Now that you know that, here's the full story of what actually happened, why it matters, and why the real story is actually more interesting than the fake one. Brand Risk 14 was exactly the kind of event that exists to generate clips for the internet. Aiden Ross's production, UFC Apex, wall-to-wall celebrities, Ray J swinging on an internet personality, influencers in the front rows, rappers on commentary panels, cameras catching every blink. Chris Brown was there ringside showing love to his guy. 6ix9ine was sitting on the commentary panel. The vibe was loose, people laughing, the kind of chaos the algorithm eats for breakfast. Then 6ix9ine pulled the mic close and dropped the line. The room froze. Aiden Ross's face dropped on camera. Smile gone, energy switched. He tried to shut it down immediately. That's not even cool, bro. Come on. Too late. The clip was off and running within the hour. TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, the algorithm fed that thing to everyone with a phone. Brown reportedly responded by sending 6ix9ine a private video. Reaction channels described it as aggressive, disturbing, the kind of message you send when words aren't going to cut it. What was actually on that video hasn't been leaked, confirmed, or verified by a single legitimate source. A description from a reaction channel is not evidence. It's content built on top of content. Nobody who claimed to know produced a screenshot, a transcript, or anything you can check. The entire brutal attack narrative rests on a verbal exchange and an unverified private message. That's it. That's the story underneath the thumbnails. But the real story, the one worth actually paying attention to, is about two men with serious documented histories, pointing fingers at each other, and the hypocrisy that lives inside that moment. Chris Brown's name has carried weight that goes way past his music for almost 2 decades. On February 8, 2009, he assaulted his then-girlfriend Rihanna in a rented car after a pre-Grammys party. The police report documented what happened in detail. Photos of her injuries circulated and never left the internet. They're still floating around today, still getting pulled up every single time his name trends. He pleaded guilty to felony assault, received 5 years probation, community labor, and a year of domestic violence counseling. That night became a permanent fixture of his public biography. Every album drop, every tour announcement, every interview, it walks in before he does. He's done apologies, counseling, public sit-downs referencing childhood trauma and diagnoses of bipolar disorder and PTSD. None of it erased what happened. The pattern after 2009 kept adding to the picture. 2012, a bottle-throwing incident between his crew and Drake's crew injured 8 people, including NBA player Tony Parker. 2013, an altercation with Frank Ocean. Multiple arrests across multiple years tied to assault allegations in different cities. 2014, 131 days in a Virginia jail for probation violations. 2023, a tequila bottle allegedly used to hit a music producer in a London club. Civil claim worth around $16 million. Arrest in Manchester in 2025. Trial set for October 2026. He pleaded not guilty and is still able to tour, but that case is hanging over everything. That's the man 6ix9ine decided to clown on a live broadcast in front of millions. And 6ix9ine's decision to do it wasn't spontaneous. He'd been using Brown's history as material for years before Brand Risk 14. On a Vlad TV interview, sitting in a Shark Tank, showing off face tattoos, completely out of nowhere, he described his own colored wig as the Chris Brown and used the Rihanna assault as a punchline about his hair. used one of the most documented domestic violence cases in modern entertainment history as a joke. No setup, no context, just casual. What makes that even harder to sit with is 6ix9ine's own record. Before the fame, in 2015, Daniel Hernandez pleaded guilty to use of a child in a sexual performance involving a 13-year-old. He's claimed she lied about her age. That conviction is on the record permanently and cannot be argued or painted over, regardless of how many interviews he does or what color his hair is. Then, in 2018, he was arrested on racketeering, firearms, and gang charges, facing a potential life sentence. He cooperated, testified against his own people, got 2 years, house arrest during COVID, and the snitch label that the hip-hop world has never fully removed. The footage of his testimony circulated for entertainment. His reputation in the culture never fully recovered. So let's sit with what actually happened at Brand Risk 14. 6ix9ine told a live stream audience to keep the girls away from Chris Brown, positioning himself as some kind of protector of women, implying he was somehow the safer option in the room. The man with a conviction involving a 13-year-old. The comments called it immediately. Pot calling the kettle black was running every reaction thread on every platform. He had no moral standing to make that call. He knew it. Everyone watching knew it. He didn't care because the moment was worth more to him than the credibility. The clout was the goal. That's always been his strategy. Be the loudest, most disrespectful person in every room, manufacture a moment that runs the algorithm, collect the streams, move to the next one. What made this sneak attack especially sharp is the context underneath it. Chris Brown and 6ix9ine weren't enemies before May 23, 2026. They made music together. Their 2020 collaboration 911 had both of them in the same video. Brown was publicly showing love to 6ix9ine at a time when the entire industry had cut him off over the snitching. That solidarity cost Brown some goodwill with his own fans, people questioning why he'd align himself with someone carrying that label. 6ix9ine repaid that by picking the biggest possible stage to flip on him. The disloyalty was loud. The setting was deliberate. Everything about the timing was calculated. The fighters on the Brand Risk 14 card trained for months. 6ix9ine ran his mouth for 15 seconds and stole the whole event. That's the math he's been doing his whole career. Brown's response pattern has been consistent for years. He doesn't tweet back. He doesn't make diss tracks. He sends messages through private channels and lets the other person process what that means. That might look like restraint, or it might look like something else, depending entirely on which side of the Chris Brown debate you were already standing on before this story dropped. Team Breezy showed up the way they always do, in the comments predicting violence, posting about what would happen in a physical confrontation, essentially defending Brown by threatening violence against a man who clowned his violent history. The defense became the evidence for exactly the point 6ix9ine was making, even if he was the last person on earth qualified to make it. The broader picture here is about what the internet does with any story involving two people with documented histories and high name recognition. Feed it into an algorithm that rewards extremity, and what comes out the other side is Chris Brown brutally attacks 6ix9ine on camera. A headline that has no physical attack in it, but performs as if it does, reaches millions before anyone thinks to check, and gets shared 10 times before a single person reads past the title. The real version, a verbal jab at a celebrity boxing event and an alleged private reply, doesn't generate the same numbers, so the headline wrote itself into something it wasn't. As of early June 2026, no further escalation has been reported between the two men. No follow-up confrontation, no legal action, no diss tracks. The story stayed contained to online discourse, which brings the whole thing back to the only honest question worth asking. When two men with records like these are pointing at each other's records on a live stream in front of millions of people, who is the audience supposed to root for? The answer, when you lay all of it out side by side, is nobody. You just watch two damaged careers collide on a live broadcast while the algorithm runs the score. Drop your take in the comments. Does 6ix9ine have any standing to make that comment given his own history? Or was he exposing something real regardless of who was saying it? Subscribe for more breakdowns that go past the thumbnail and into what actually happened.